Hey Mallards, it's Saturday, and today I'm going to talk about a phone call show that I went to. So you'll remember the first phone call show I did. It was called Claws. I may or may not have gotten somebody killed doing that show. In a character, obviously, not like a real person, but like got my character killed during that show. Well, that production company, Candle House, has done several phone call shows, and I finally got to go to my second one. It was called Next Time, and what you're presented with is the idea that the Bureau is calling you to go through some sort of questionnaire to help you figure out what's going to happen next time. And it's very vague on details, but it did say it was a high energy piece and that it was definitely not intense, perhaps, but not scary like Claws was. I'm actually kind of sad that Megan didn't go to this. It's sold out and over now, but I think she would have really enjoyed it. Anyway, I'll talk through a little bit about what the show is and then my experience with it. So obviously, spoilers for this show if you think you're going to do it at some point, because they do tend to like re-up their shows, then maybe don't listen to this. So they require that you sit in a small space, either like a closet with a door or a bathroom, so that you're in a small space facing the door, and you need a piece of paper and a pen. And then before your experience begins, they make you send a picture of where you are so that they know sort of what the space is. And then you receive the phone call and you answer, and they inform you that you're dead. And that the person you're on the phone with is a sort of cosmic entity whose job it is to process the recently deceased, sort of do an overall satisfaction with your current life, and then present you with the decision eventually either to move on or be essentially reincarnated, although they don't use the term reincarnation. It is to like enjoy your next time. And it was super fun. The questions were really interesting. The character that you interact with is very dynamic, and part of the deal is that as a cosmic entity, they don't have a name, and so you are essentially like developing that character a little bit with what your interactions are, but they want to divorce you from your previous life. So you give that cosmic entity a name. I named mine Riley, and then that cosmic entity gives you a name that is not your current name, so that you can separate yourself from your previous life and think about it from a more unbiased standpoint, I guess. So I named the character Riley, and they were like, yes, like rye bread, and then therefore named me Wheatley, as in wheat bread, which was pretty funny. I laughed a lot during that show. The actress who performed Riley was very funny and had very good comedic timing. And so you're going through the whole questionnaire where you're answering questions like, how satisfied were you with your previous life? And what are numbers that were significant to you? And some other random questions like, visualize a milkshake. Was somebody drinking that milkshake when you visualized it? What flavor was that milkshake when you visualized it? And then the character, the cosmic entity, asks some questions about humans and like gives some information. And I asked a few questions about the world, like specifically, I'm the one who brought up that Riley clearly isn't human, considering they use the phrase humans find it to be reassuring over and over and things like that. You also encounter your guide's like boss at some point because it's their first day on the job, and it was just really fun and unique and a little bit different, and I'm always game to play along. So I was like, yeah, I got this, we can do this. And you are limited to the hour, and if you don't finish in the hour, then you get put on hold where you have to listen to Mambo Number 5 by Lou Bega forever. So yeah, you definitely want to finish in an hour, because the other option is terrible. But you eventually find out that this character, it's their first day, and then that you're not actually dead, that they dialed a wrong number. But you still have the opportunity to like learn about some of your past lives and also see what your upcoming life will be and make the decision so that when you eventually do die, you won't have to go through this process. You'll just be able to immediately move on to your next life, or to move on if you decide not to have a next time. And so that was really fun. It's a very lighthearted show, despite the fact that it starts with him telling you that you're dead. And it was an interesting conversation to have, because there's a little bit of talking about like regrets and dreams and hopes and stuff like that, and achievements and accomplishments. And I found it actually very uplifting, and the performer was very dynamic. I definitely tipped her at the end because she did a great job. And overall, I just had a really fun time. The production quality, again, very, very high, similar to Claws. Like, I could hear them the whole time. Everything came through very clear. Now that I've done several phone call shows, I am very curious about the technology that Candle House uses, and I might consider shooting them an email just to ask, because their sound quality is much better than some of the shows I've been to. The ones that I did, like the couple that I did most recently, well, that's not true, I guess. I should have called you earlier. Had pretty good sound quality, but was very clearly, like, was based on the person who called, because I could hear some background noise in their location. And which was fine for the universe of the show, because they're just supposed to be a friend calling you, so it wasn't a big deal. But I feel like they were actually using their phones and a dialing system. And then for the ones that I did previous to that, I think that they were using some sort of like non-phone thing to do the calls, but the quality wasn't nearly as good as Candle House. They were a little bit too loud sometimes, to the point where it was sometimes like a little peaky and distorted because of that, which didn't necessarily ruin my enjoyment of the story, but was a stark contrast now going back to a Candle House show. So I don't know if they use a different tech, if they have a way of doing things, or like how they train their performers to do something like that, but it was really freaking cool and sounded so good and just flowed very, very, very well. And the hour flew by, despite the fact that I was sitting on the floor in the bathroom, which was not the most comfortable place to be. Not nearly as comfortable as I was for Claws, but I was having an enjoyable time, and I didn't even necessarily realize until I tried to get up at the end and my legs were asleep. So yeah, Candle House has a new show coming up that I think is called The Missing. I already got a ticket. I know that there is still tickets available. I will link to Candle House down here. You should definitely check them out. It's absolutely a set of shows worth going to. And I'll see you tomorrow.